This is Orange Nation Overtime with Stephen Fonte and Paulie Sibilia.
Welcome into Orange Nation Overtime, everyone, alongside Paulie Sibilia. I'm Stephen Fonte. Game night for the Orange on the road at NC State. Quad one opportunity for what it's worth. NC State in the top 30 right now in the net rankings. They're very good at home. They've played very well of late outside of a recent loss to Georgia Tech. This is a tall order at home. Quadir Copeland saying it's going to be personal. This is a tall order for the Orange tonight.
Yeah, I have them losing by 12. I'm not in on this boat anymore. I'm jumping ship. Last rat off.
It does seem like they have yet to recover from that BC loss. They meaning Syracuse. They went on the road. They stubbed their toe at BC. They have not won since, and it does seem like that loss took some wind out of their sails, and they have not bounced back from it yet.
Yeah, I usually give your nugget at the end, Steve. It's National Plan Your Vacation Day. Today seems fitting. If they don't beat NC State, we could start planning our vacation for March.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to do something significant in the month of February to even get back towards the bubble. And, it's a whole lot of Virginia and Louisville and Duke and 2 games against North Carolina. And all of these teams are better than them.
Or opportunities, as we like to call them.
I mean, it's
a tall ask.
It really is. They're not playing well right now. And all of those teams are much better than them. I don't know if you saw the Duke game last night, but Duke absolutely annihilated Louisville. I don't think Cuse is going to Cameron and winning that game. So they're running out of time. They do have opportunities, but, you look at the remaining Quad 1 games, if you had to rank them in order of most difficult to least difficult, this one might be least, and this is still going to be. I mean, they're a double-digit underdog tonight, and this might be the least difficult game they have remaining from a Quad 1 opportunity. So it gives you some idea of just how tough this is going to be tonight. We had Corey Smith on our Orange Nation radio show this afternoon. He's the editor of Pack Power 247, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. He's the NC State insider for 24/7 Sports, and we let him off by asking him to evaluate year one under Will Wade as head coach of the Wolfpack.
The off-season talk, and Will Wade kind of did it to himself a little bit, where you say, all right, we're going to come out, we're going to have a red reckoning, and, it's going to be hell for the rest of the ACC, all this different stuff, and, we're not taking any prisoners, whatever, type of thing that was said in the off-season. Then you lose, 4 games in non-conference, and that's not, a great look. Obviously, you wanted to win a couple of those to be able to kind of sell to the fan base that you got yourself in position, and, you are what you said you were, and obviously, they would have liked to win a couple games in Maui. They would have loved to win the game at home against Kansas. But, as you get into ACC play now, this team is 5-2 overall, and, they've gotten to a point where, at 14-6, you're kind of in a good spot in the ACC where, all right, you're still in the top half. You're in the top 5 of the ACC right now going into this matchup against Syracuse. So, as much as you kind of missed the mark a little bit early on, you haven't really missed the mark in the ACC to this point. You win a road game against Clemson, and you put yourself in a good enough spot to be able to kind of be where you thought you would be, at least in ACC play to this point. So I think it's still on track, even despite some early, we'll say some early speed bumps to the season.
How about the play of Quadir Copeland? He's obviously a major storyline going into this game tonight because of his time at SU. It looks like he's having a pretty good year from afar based on what I've seen. He's averaging 14 a game, 6 assists, 4 straight games now in double figures. What do you make of his game, and how has he been received down there by the NC State fans?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that Will Wade has allowed him to do is just have freedom within the system. Last year, they went through their trials and tribulations at McNeese, and, he talked about it. Will Wade talked about it, the fact that he, basically let him go for like 10 days. And, if you want to be back on this team, you're going to have to earn it. And he eventually did, and there's a reason why he wanted to transfer over to NC State along with Will Wade. And you're seeing it pay off this season where he's kind of said, hey, look, we're going to let you take the reins of the offense. They'd like for it to be, the usage rating for him and Darian Williams to be around 25, to have them both kind of playing in sync with each other, playing on and off the ball at times. But what we've seen so far is again, him elevate his game as a scorer. You're seeing him elevate his game as a three-point shooter. He's not taking, he's not going to take 100 three-pointers this year, but he's making almost 50% of his three-pointers this season, which is a massive jump from last season where he finished with 16% of made three-pointers. He just wasn't asked to do it nearly as much. Will Wade talked about it yesterday. He went off to train with Phil Beckner in the offseason and work on his shots. But also he's just a willing passer, and he's somebody that the defenses kind of gravitate towards. And once they do, he's being able to dish it out to other guys and let them score around him. Paul McNeil has taken a big jump because of him. Darian Williams, who's seen him take a little bit of a jump because of him, and other players around him just be able to get better because of what he's done as a point guard and what he's done as a scorer as well.
You brought up the name Darian Williams. He was obviously a huge addition out of the portal from Texas Tech. Will Wade had that viral press conference defending him. How has he performed, especially of late, and what's the fan base think of him right now?
Yeah, I think the fan base is kind of up and down on Darian Williams. The fact that he hasn't produced as much as a scorer as people kind of expected. Going into the season, I think a lot of people expected to see what they got in the NCAA tournament. Texas Tech, 4 straight games where he had over 20 points. So you kind of expect, all right, this is going to be the guy that's going to take the ball in his hands, hit big shots, and he hasn't done that as much this season. But what you've had is, as Will Wade has talked about multiple times, when his usage rating is high, he makes winning plays. And, on the road so far this season over the last several games, he's been that guy. Now, the one, missing piece to that was what he did against Pitt, but a lot of that was because he was in foul trouble and he didn't, get an opportunity to really be a difference maker in that game. But, coming home, this is an opportunity for him to do it in front of the home fan base, something he hasn't done in quite a while. So we'll see ultimately what he does in this game. But, from a scoring standpoint, it really hasn't been there on a game in and game out basis. But with the ball in his hands, he's been somebody that's been able to make winning plays for NC State. And I think, from a playmaking standpoint, they really need him in this game against Syracuse, especially, given the fact that they have Freeman back and, what he can do from an offensive and defensive standpoint down low.
Back-to-back road wins for this team after that bad loss to Georgia Tech. NC State 4-0 on the road in league play, sandwiched around that one loss, which was a quad 3 loss to the Yellow Jackets. What happened in that game, and I guess, what has changed since then that allowed them to bounce back the way that they have?
Yeah, it was kind of the same thing that happened against UVA the game before at home, and obviously 2 completely different teams, but NC State got down early in both of those games and wasn't able to really claw their way back out of it. Against Georgia Tech, they were midway through, but then the offense fell apart again late. So they need the offense to be consistent throughout. And, it's an interesting matchup because, you go against a Syracuse team that ranks top 25 in the country defensively in limiting teams, at least in the first half. They're only allowing teams to score 30.7 points in the first half, which, I believe ranks 24th in the country going into this game. So this is an NC State team that really needs to be able to get out to a hot start. If Syracuse is able to limit them there, this is a game that Syracuse really has a chance in.
Curious to get your thoughts on Syracuse, just kind of from the outside looking in, what you've seen, from watching ACC basketball this season. What are your impressions of the Orange?
Yeah, this is a team that's been really up and down throughout the season. Obviously, in the last 3 games, going back to really the last 2 weeks or so, they've struggled as far as being able to consistently produce offensively and limit teams defensively. And looking back at it, obviously, I think we all kind of thought that once Donnie Freeman came back, this was going to be a completely different team. And I think what teams have done over the last few weeks is limit him. I say limit him, but, he's still getting his every once in a while. But, if you're able to keep him below 20 points, that's something that ACC, they're 3-4 in ACC play right now. When teams are limiting him offensively to less than 20 points, they've been able to win. So I think this is a chance for, if they're going to be able to kind of pull their way back out of this hole, it's going to have to be through Freeman and through, J.J. Starling being able to kind of produce on the offensive end. And then, guys around them kind of jumping on the wagon there. And we just haven't seen that as consistently for Syracuse over the last few weeks.
It kind of leads me into my next question, Corey. I was going to ask you, to kind of lay out a blueprint for how Syracuse gives itself a chance tonight to win. I mean, we all saw the line, double-digit point spread, and NC State a sizable favorite to win tonight. In your mind, what does Cuse need to do, or maybe NC State not do for this to be a close game?
Yeah, I mean, again, I keep going back to it, but, getting off to a good start. For NC State, the issue for them over the last few weeks has been, particularly at home, when they don't get off to good starts. It's something that Syracuse has been able to do, but, for Syracuse, it's really kind of keeping your foot on the gas pedal as far as the offense is concerned. And it's something that, they've allowed teams to kind of get back into games and ultimately pull through. For NC State, it's something they've struggled with at home. Once the crowd kind of gets out of it and isn't, kind of sucked into the whole, oh, God, here we go again type of moment, they've, ultimately the team has kind of fed off that energy. So I think for Syracuse, it's getting off to a hot start. And for NC State, it's the same thing. They've got to be better defensively at home against Syracuse. It's something they struggle with against Georgia Tech. It's something they struggle with against UVA. But also, if you're Syracuse, one of the bigger things to me is trying to figure out a way to turn the ball over. If they're able to turn NC State over a couple times, that gets them out of their flow offensively. And it's something that, Georgia Tech was really able to do last time out. NC State was able to kind of get it under control in the second half, but still weren't able to get back from it. So I think those are going to be the kind of two keys for Syracuse, getting off to a good start and forcing NC State into turnovers and getting the offense out of rhythm throughout this game.
That's Corey Smith, editor of Pack Power 24/7. And, a lot of talk going into this game, of course, Paulie, about Quadir Copeland. The fact that earlier in the week he said to the media this game is personal for him. How much do you think that's going to be a storyline for the Orange tonight? J.J. Starling, Adrian Autry, are they paying any attention to that? Are they trying to use it as motivation?
I hope not. I hope they're just concentrating on the mistakes they've made the past few games, and you got to figure those out.
Yeah.
You hope Quadir is a little too amped.
Right. I mean, and that came up on the show today just about, a lot of our callers and chatters at QSportsTalk.com talking about, Quadir's going to go out and kill them tonight. And, he's motivated and he's going to put on a show. And he may do that, but there is that possibility, Paulie, that is there that, maybe he's a little bit too amped up. Maybe he takes a bad shot or two trying to, create something or a bad pass or two trying to get flashy. So we'll see if Syracuse can take advantage of that. They did force a lot of turnovers against Miami, 16 of them, and did not take advantage of that against the Hurricanes. Miami out-rebounded them, shot 61% from the field. If Syracuse has a chance tonight, it seems like, they're going to have to catch NC State on an off night, making turnovers, missing shots, and then they're going to have to take advantage of it at the other end.
Yeah, I would expect a defensive performance like we saw against Houston tonight.
They need it.
If you don't, you're not going to win.
They need it. They've gotten away from that, right? I mean, that was their identity at the beginning of the season, and they have gotten away from it, especially these last three games. We did talk about that with Kevin Brown, play-by-play man for ESPN. He'll be on the call tonight of Syracuse-NC State along with Corey Alexander on ESPNU. And we led him off by asking what stands out to him, the storylines heading into this game that he's about to call this evening.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys heard, but did you know Quadir Copeland played at Syracuse before he ended up at NC State?
Did he really? You said.
It's going to be partly my fault that we're going to lean into this today. But look, it's a good story. It is. And I think for the national audience that's going to watch this game, it doesn't have the familiarity for Syracuse or NC State. I think it is an important story because there's a little something there. I don't think, I think animosity is too strong a word, but when he comes out and says it's personal and you understand his personality. If you watch him at Syracuse, you understand if you watch him at NC State. He's going to want to get a triple-double today. He's going to want to score 40 points. He's going to want to have a little extra sizzle, and he's the guy who plays with sizzle. And I think it's also a storyline because he's the best player on an NC State team, which is, a little underwhelming at times compared to what I thought, but I think they may be starting to hit their stride. Obviously, Will Wade is just a terrific coach, and they've won 4 out of 5. Syracuse has lost 3 in a row. It seems like a wrong direction, right direction kind of game. I think Syracuse has to find an identity You guys have certainly seen a lot more than I have this year, but I've been paying pretty close attention. And I'm seeing a team that had a little bit of an identity as a fierce defensive team that's lost it in the last few weeks. So I know that Quadir Copeland is going to elevate the level of what might ordinarily just be kind of a humdrum Tuesday ACC game. Which way he's going to elevate it remains to be seen. But it's a chance for Syracuse to say, all right, we've got to go into this final month plus and look at the opportunities in front of us to get quad one wins, to get big wins, to get into the conversation. It has to start today. They've obviously left themselves very little margin for error given the last 3 games. But I do think the Copeland factor is going to raise the energy a little bit on the court today, and I'm excited to see how that goes and how both sides respond to that.
You know, you mentioned the NC State's resume there in the quad one game. When you look at NC State and you see them at 27, is that a little baffling to you that they're 14-6 and 27 in the net?
It's not, just because they really challenged themselves in the non-conference. You know, they went to Maui, which isn't quite the same as it has been in the past, but Seton Hall and Texas have turned out to be pretty good teams. They played Kansas at home. They played Ole Miss neutral. They're a little bit of like an analytical darling, and I think the numbers and the metrics, the net, KenPom, et cetera, will tell you they're a little better than maybe the results do, to be fair. Part of that is they've just blown the heck out of some teams. They scored 108 points in 4 games. None of those games were against particularly good teams. But they've had a few of those games that, you know, teams with kind of surprising net rankings do, where you win by 55 against an overmatched opponent and you bump your margins of victory. They're really good. They've got Darian Williams, who was the preseason ACC Player of the Year. He has really not been anything close to that for much of the season. He's had a shoulder injury. I don't know how much that's hampered him. He really hasn't been scoring or shooting very well, but he does do a lot more off the ball. Copeland's been their best guy. Ben Allen Lubin, who's a UNC transfer, is 6th in the nation in field goal percentage and is kind of a walking double-double. Their top, 5 or 6, I think, is really good. They're not very deep. Syracuse is a deeper team, but NC State's top-end talent is really good. And I think their 1 through 5 is among, the 3 or 4 best 1 through 5s in the league. There's just a little bit of drop off and a little bit of inconsistency, but I don't know, to answer your question in a long-winded way. I don't know if they are if their resume is indicative of a team that should be 27. They have the talent level that they could easily be 17, though, and I think they are a super dangerous team in the final couple of months of the year.
You mentioned identity a moment ago, Kevin, that Syracuse had an identity earlier in the year. We saw it out there in Vegas, the way they played defense and kind of carried that over into the early part of the ACC, but they have gotten away from that. Can you put your finger on why that is or where that identity has gone over the course of the last couple of weeks?
It's hard to, honestly. It's hard to, and I think this has been a persistent issue over the last few years is what is Syracuse basketball and what does Adrian Autry want it to be and what do people want it to be? All right, for years, Jim Boeheim's teams obviously had identities. I mean, the zone was an obvious identity, but, the athletes within the zone, the long-armed wings, the freedom offensively that you had. I just think it's been a while, since there's been an identity besides here's the roster this year and we'll see what these guys do. I mean, Adrian Autry's obviously had levels of challenges in his first 3 years that you can point to, but I did think early in the year, there was a toughness, there was an interior defense with William Kyle that really stood out to me, right? There was an aggression on defense, and I thought this could be something. This is what good programs do, and they win games when they're not shooting or scoring because they just have an identity, and they bring that every night. Why that has slipped of late, I think is a fair question. It's honestly not one I have a very easy answer for, but it can't slip much longer, right? When you look at the schedule coming up, they will need that to be their identity going forward, because you have Carolina twice, you go to Duke, Virginia, SMU, Louisville. This is not going to be an easy game. I mean, it's a gauntlet on the stretch. So why that's gone, I don't know. They desperately need to find it. They really can't waste any time finding it.
What stands out to you from a personnel standpoint with this Syracuse team? The good and the bad. Has anybody surprised you this year? I know William Kyle, for instance, for us has been a pleasant surprise, and maybe has anybody disappointed you on this roster?
Yeah, Kyle is. I mean, I didn't see him. I never had UCLA. Shockingly, I didn't have any South Dakota State games, but I didn't think they were getting like an elite, one of the nation's best shot blockers. Just the level of bounce, the athleticism he has, it's really impressive. You kind of wonder, where was this guy at UCLA last year, and why didn't he really crack the rotation with the things he could do? I know he's been a little hit and miss in conference play. He was better on Saturday. I've been impressed with Kyan Anthony just based off of what I heard. I think people maybe nationally tempered expectations a little bit because he was Carmelo's kid. I think it went a little too far the other way. Oh, don't expect him to have a big impact early. And he looks pretty comfortable on the ball, comfortable with the ball in his hands to me. I know his free throw shooting and three-point shooting are a work in progress, but just being a shoot-around today, like there's a real smoothness and a maturity and a physical maturity. So I've been impressed with him. I think Nate George is probably going to be the answer for a lot of Syracuse fans. He is for me. I saw him at Georgia Tech last year. When Syracuse got him, I thought this guy's going to be an elite point guard, potentially all ACC. His inconsistency has been a little tough to watch in those games, and I think some of the timeliness of the turnovers, too, in the games I've seen. It's not just turnovers. It's momentum-killing moments, right? Live ball turnovers, which are worse than if you throw the ball out of bounds off somebody's leg or, it hits your own hand or whatever. So I'd like to see more. I think there is more from Nate George. Maybe he was just a guy at Georgia Tech who put up bigger numbers in a different system. I don't want to say like he was a bad team, good stats guy. I think that's maybe simplifying it a little bit. But the talent level around him is, I think, pretty strong. I have seen a lot of the ACC. I've been covering the league the last 2 years. I've seen most of the league in person now this year. I think Syracuse is among the more talented teams. I really do. I've seen North Carolina a bunch. I've seen Clemson. I've seen Virginia. I've seen NC State. I've seen Louisville. Pretty much the only team up top I haven't seen yet is Duke. I don't see them in person in a couple of weeks. I've seen SMU. I've seen Virginia Tech. I think Syracuse really does stack up favorably from a talent perspective. I think they need crisper, more efficient point guard play, and I just think they need more focus defensively. And those are not two things, right, that you just wave your hand and that happens. But I really don't think this team is far off from a talent perspective, which is good and bad, right? It's good because you can tell yourself they've got a chance to beat some good teams because they can go head-to-head from a talent perspective. It's bad because you say, well, if they're that talented, why are they 12-8? Right. And I can see both sides of that divide. But I do think you get better point guard play out of Nate George. You get fewer turnovers. You get a little more consistency. I think that's the factor above all other factors offensively that could turn the season around.
Yeah. You just rattled off all the teams you've seen this year in the ACC. I mean, how much better is the ACC this year in your mind? And then the second part of that question is, what's your best guess in terms of how many teams ultimately get in the tournament from the ACC?
I think it's an 8 or 9 bid league. I think the bracketologists of the world have them at 9 right now. I always try to make a little room in my mind for the quote-unquote bid thieves. Although it's not like any mid-major conferences are getting 2 bids anyway now in this land of the portal, taking every good mid-major player and sucking them up. But it's a really good league again. The bottom of the league is worse than the SEC. The bottom of the league is worse than the Big Ten. BC, Pitt, Florida State's got a new coach. Georgia Tech's down. But 1 through 12, 1 through 13, I think it's just about as good as any league. Maybe the Big Ten's, heavier at the top with like 5 legitimate Final Four contenders. But the league is just so much more competitive. I don't want to say it's as simple as money, but that's a big part of it. NC State invested into their program with Will Wade and big NIL. Ryan Odom's phenomenal at Virginia. They put a ton of money into the program. SMU's put resources into the program. Syracuse put a lot more money into the program this year, obviously. So, Syracuse is frustrating this year, but they're still so much better than they were last year. Cal is much better than they were last year. Virginia Tech is miles better. Miami was like an affront to basketball last year, and now they look like a tournament team again. So we'll see if the league can sustain it, but pretty much every new coach has impressed me. The only one who's kind of down is Luke Laux at Florida State, and I think he got put in a really tough job. They don't have the money yet, but he plays a very attractive style, and I think he will get that program right. The investment into the league has been huge. From seeing these games up close last year, and you guys probably feel the same way, there's just like a physical maturity to the transfers in the league that wasn't there last year. The freshmen are stronger. I'm just looking at the physicality of the game and just the body types and the size of these players. Like, it wasn't close to last year's league. It just wasn't close. So I think it's a league that will be very, very, very competitive in March, unlike last year where it was Duke and everybody else flopped out. I think it's an 8 or 9 bid league genuinely, and I wouldn't be shocked if Cal or Stanford or Virginia Tech or one of these surprise teams really gets hot and adds to that list in the final month. So if you're looking for good news for Syracuse, they're going to have like 7 quad 1 opportunities the rest of the way because the league is so good. If you're looking for bad news, the way they're playing, they're not going to win many of those. So it's a give and take, but it's a really, really good physical, mature league. Teams play with tempo a little more, I think, than they did last year. So it's just a more attractive style of basketball, and the energy in the buildings is higher where I go. So it's been a lot of fun.
That's Kevin Brown, does a great job calling games for ESPN. Also the voice of the Baltimore Orioles, has had a lot of success, former Cuse guy himself. And, he'll be on the call tonight with Corey Alexander. You said a little bit earlier, you've got NC State winning this game. I think that's the call. Until we see otherwise from this Syracuse team, it's hard to feel confident in their abilities to go on the road and beat a team that's better than them, given the way they're playing right now.
Yep, and if they come out of this with a win, hope will be up a little bit. You've got the one, then you're going to have a couple more of the later.
Notre Dame next. Yeah. That's a very doable game.
You could win a quad 1 at Wake, and then you've got 3, and you're kind of, I don't know. I'm just trying to be happy. Right now,
yeah, I mean, they win a game tonight. They win this game tonight, and then you could talk about, okay, what do they need to do in the month of February to get back to the bubble? You lose this game tonight, I don't know. Outside of running the table in the ACC tournament or, going on some miraculous run in February where they win 5 of those 6 quad 1 games that we just talked about, I don't know that it's feasible for them to get an at-large bid.
It's National Chocolate Cake Day, Steve.
Yeah?
You like a good chocolate cake?
Chocolate's not really my thing. We've talked about this. I know.
The first box cake was created by a company called O'Duff & Sons in 1920s, and Betty Crocker released her first dry mix in 1947.
How about that? Are you a chocolate cake fan?
I love all cake.
Okay. I like cake too, but
no icing or chocolate.
I don't like frosting, and I prefer something other than chocolate.
Like what? Vanilla?
Vanilla. I like spice cake a lot. Like
carrot?
Yeah, but it's more like...
you are like a 90-year-old. Do you have mothballs in your closet?
Spice cake and carrot cake are 2 different things, but they do taste
German
similar.
chocolate?
I mean, I would eat it, I guess, but it's not my favorite.
Angel food?
Like if I have the choice of chocolate cake and pretty much anything else in the cake family, I'm taking the other thing.
Red velvet?
I would take everything other than chocolate. Chocolate would be like probably my last choice.
Okay.
Coconut, like it's all, I would pick it all before chocolate. But I would eat chocolate.
Okay.
All right. Glad we sorted
without
that.
any icing.
or very little icing. I just don't like a lot of frosting.
Okay.
We got to go.
Like a treat.
No
At
pun
the dinner
intended.
table.
For Paulie, I'm Steve. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll talk to everybody again tomorrow.
Download the WSYR Plus app on your TV to stream News Channel 9 for free. Just go to your smart TV, search WSYR Plus in the App Store, and download to start streaming today.